You know those whispers, those moments where you feel called to something much bigger? Maybe it's a vision that you're going to be rich. Maybe you're meant to impact millions. Maybe it's just that feeling that keeps showing up like you're supposed to do something significant even though you have no clue what it is. Most people dismiss those whispers. And I get it. Your ego is loud, your current reality is convincing, and those big visions feel delusional. But here's what I've learned. Building a $40 million portfolio of companies and working with thousands of entrepreneurs, you're not imagining those whispers. Rather, you're remembering your future. I'm David Bayer, and today I'm going to show you why those impossible visions you keep getting aren't delusions and what to do with them to make them your reality. You know, my own personal experience is that over the course of my life, I got so caught up in my identity and success and anxiety and overwhelm and comparing myself to other people that I lost connection with that inner voice. And I'm so grateful for the fact that in my early 30s, I realized I was a drug addict, a sex addict, an alcoholic, and I got into a recovery program because I started healing those things inside of me. And when I did, I started hearing a different voice. And the voice that I started hearing is a voice that I've been building a relationship with over the last couple of decades. It is the thing that has guided me to everything that I cherish that I have in my life right now. And it started out as a whisper. It was a whisper that, you know, a different life was possible. It was a small whisper that I didn't have to live in financial insecurity anymore, that maybe I could be rich like some of the people I saw out there. I remember going to restaurants and seeing, you know, loud talking guys with fancy watches and thinking, man, like they've just figured something out. Like I'm just trying to pay my rent. But there was a whisper. And I'm sure you've had that whisper too. You may not remember exactly what it was, but you remember the whisper. There are these flashes of moments of inspiration where something is suggesting to you that your life can be different, and not just different, but much, 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 much bigger. And we dismiss those whispers because we're still living with so much of our limitation. And what this process is your intuition coming back online. You know, I can go back to my childhood and I can see my intuition was there. I have a 3-year-old toddler now. I can see that he has a gut instinct that he listens to. He's not dominated by his own thinking. But I lost that over the course of my life, and almost everyone I know does. And what's true is that most people don't necessarily allow their full intuition to come back online. And that's what I want to share with you, because the key here is learning how to distinguish between your intuition and your ego. Because your intuition is really, some people might describe it as the whisper of God or your higher self or the universe that's kind of indicating where you should go and what's possible. It's your future version of yourself coming to visit you in those quiet, brief moments right here, right now. And so this is very important. It's important to develop this capacity and the skill and to not kill those little whispers as they come up through questions or dismissing them or trying to force clarity before it's ready. The key here is to stay open to the intuition. I describe intuition as almost like a wild cat. You know, so you see those street cats and they'll come towards you when they want some food. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it's my own experience. It's like you try to develop a relationship with the cat, but it's a feral cat. It's a wild cat. So if you make any quick moves or loud noises, boom, right? It's off. The relationship is done. And the tendency is that as these quiet whispers of our future start to show up, you know, that we're destined for some sort of greatness, maybe even some glimpses of what that greatness is, the mind will immediately come in and make a bunch of noise, right? It'll rattle around in your brain. Well, how is that even possible? How is it that I'm going to become one of the wealthiest people in the world when I've got a shit ton of credit card debt and I can barely make ends meet? How is it that me over here is actually going to do something significant in the world, maybe impact millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, when like I can't even put the bottle down, or I'm crippled with anxiety on a regular basis? Now, in my other episodes, I talk about that's exactly why you are the one, because the challenges that you have right now are the challenges that you have had. As you overcome them, allow you to become the person who can show the way for others. But the key here around this intuition piece is just like stay chill. Let the whispers come. You know, the intuition and the ego feel very differently. The intuition is calm, it's quiet. There's almost an unusual contrast between the size of the message that it's delivering and the way that it's delivering it, right? The size of the message is very, very big sometimes. It's not necessarily clear, but it's very, very quiet. And that's the exact opposite of the ego. The ego, that inner critic in your head, the self-criticism, the judging of others, it's super loud. And the message is very, very small. It's squabbling for the scraps on the table, right? It's carrying a resentment with you about what someone said who's not even thinking about you anymore hours later, right? It's having an invisible argument with somebody that you don't even know because they cut you off on the road. That's what the ego does. Really loud, small messages. The intuition, very quiet, big messages. And so part of this process of allowing your intuition to come online, which is a clarification of the greatness that I believe we're all destined for. Each of us is destined for a different type of greatness. You know, I think about my first sponsor. He was great. He was a great 6th grade teacher. And he was a great sponsor, helping a lot of, children get out of the gates early without a lot of wounds and programs, and helping adults like me who had wounds and programs overcome them through working the 12 steps. Great human being, great mission, right? And that's different than, a famous person like Gandhi, right? Greatness, right? To unite a nation that was torn apart, to help a nation through peaceful protest overcome British imperialistic rule. Greatness too. Each of us came into this life, we chose a different path. And as your intuition grows, what's happening is there's the old part of you that's dying. You're letting it go. You're letting the old stories go. You're letting the old self die, the stories that you're not worthy, the stories that you don't deserve to be heard, the stories that you don't matter, the stories that wealth and prosperity are for other people but not for you, the stories that your parents told you, whether they meant to or not. Behavioral psychology and neuroscience tell us that about 80% of what you believe is just adopted from your parents, either what they said or what you saw them do, and the meaning you gave to that experience. So you're letting a part of your ancestry that no longer serves you die when you let go of these things and you get into this work of personal growth. Now, how do you do this? We've got episode after episode after episode on this channel about that. But as your intuition comes online and as the voice of your ego starts to diminish, that's your old self dying, and it's the new you emerging. It's your future self starting to streamline or syndicate into you as you start to become that future version of yourself right now. And this is a normal part of the process. As this happens, as you let go of the old, which might feel safe but no longer serves you, and as you're willing to entertain the whisper without suffocating it or needing answers right away, your greatness is being clarified. You're being called into your greatness. And this is how you hear the calling, right? You have to allow the old you to die so that you can allow your greatness to emerge. There's a lot of quotes in the scripture about this, right? But one that comes to mind is Ephesians. And the quote is something like, "Put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life, and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and put on the new self, created after the likeness of God." And it's such a great quote, right? Even in its specificity. It's saying, be renewed in the spirit of your mind, right? Change your mind. Allow the old thoughts, the old emotions to die, and be renewed as the new self is put on you, created after the likeness of God. Well, what is God? God is greatness. God is good. God is great. And so what's happening is now the likeness that you are in the image of God is taking full form and shape as your ego diminishes and as your intuition comes online. This is the process that you have to go through. Hey, it's David. Quick interruption to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. I want to let you know about an opportunity to go even deeper into this work together. If you have not yet, please check out the show notes. In there, we've got links to both our Mind Hack and our Whole Human Framework programs. Our Mind Hack course is an incredible framework. It's the foundation of everything that I teach on this show to help you understand how to become deeply aware of the subconscious programs that are holding you back and to teach you the technologies and frameworks to allow you to dramatically transform those belief systems and rewire your brain. Again, the Mind Hack program is our 7-day self-paced program. We also have our 12-week course, The Whole Human Framework. And we've got both of them right now bundled in a special offer for those of you who want to go big, want to go fast, and who understand that you don't want to put off another day of your full potential or holding on to unnecessary stress, anxiety, or suffering, but you want to be liberated from these habits of thinking and have a powerful living experience. Check out the link in the show notes. Jump on over to the website. Take a look at the programs and the extraordinary success stories of entrepreneurs just like you who have gone through these courses, and I will see you on the other side. And now, back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode. Maybe you've heard my story, right? It wasn't that long ago that I was a drug addict, an alcoholic, a sex addict. I had 2 homes in foreclosure. I had no money to my name. And I had to let that David die. And it oftentimes felt like I was going to die. But I had to let the old parts of me go, the parts of me that felt very, very familiar, the parts of me that had evolved to compensate for challenges and traumas that I had in my childhood. And as it started to die, I started having these experiences. I remember like a year after I got into my recovery program and I was really starting to change my mind and change my life and change my identity, who David was, allowing the old parts of me to die and my future self to start to stream in. I had this series of experiences. One time specifically, I was in Arizona. I was out in the wilderness on top of a mountain. And the sun was setting, and I had this image of me speaking to hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. And I was like, that's the craziest thing. Like, what is that? Why would I be speaking to millions of people? It was like a whole new civilization that I saw in front of me. And I was like sharing my message. Now I do events with thousands of people who attend, and I'm sharing my message with millions of people through my podcast. But this is way before any of that was on my radar. Another time, a couple of years later, I heard a voice whisper to me. I was going for a hike. I guess I need to get out in nature more. That's the moral of this story. But I was going for a hike, and I heard this little voice, like as real as someone said it to me, shepherd my people through the gate. I was like, what the hell is that? Shepherd my people through the gate. But now it's starting to make so much sense. You know, I'm building a portfolio of companies that are allowing people to transition from the old system, the old financial system, the old healthcare system, the old educational system, to a new system, a new regenerative, wholesome economy. That's the gate. I was getting a glimpse of my future. Help people move from the old system to the new system. Shepherd my people through the gate. Pretty poetic in the way I guess my intuition speaks to me, right? Pretty biblical is how it felt. But that's literally what I'm creating. That's literally what Whole Human is, our latest framework and course. It's about helping people walk through that gate from the old version of themselves to the new one. You know, back then I had this vision of having a major impact on humanity, but I was struggling with drugs. I was struggling with alcohol. It didn't make any sense. And so I was always like, no, that's not me. Like I hear the whisper, but that's not me. That's somebody else. I must be tuning into somebody else's radio station. And I want to share that with you because no matter where you are in your life right now, your higher power or the universe or the God of your own understanding is so powerful and so great that he can take you from where you are to where you're meant to go. In fact, you are where you are right now because it's the training ground for where you're meant to go. So no matter where you are right now, you're being communicated with. And I know you know this. I know you've felt the hunches. It's probably a hunch that led you to watching this or listening to this episode. So it's important that we pay attention to these things instead of dismissing them, right? We pay attention to these things instead of dismissing them because these are not things that you're imagining. You know, maybe it's that you're going to be super rich someday. Maybe it's that you're going to be significant. You'll become the president of a country or impact millions of people. Those aren't things you're imagining. They're what you're tuning into, right? And we dismiss these big visions, but you're tuning into it. And in fact, you're tuning into your future. There's a great movie called Arrival. I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, I recommend it. And there's an actress, I think her name is Amy Adams. She's tasked with communicating with the aliens. And she has to learn the language of the aliens in order to communicate with them. And so in language, the way you think determines how you experience reality. That's why language is so shaping of our reality, because it determines the way that we think. Think about it for a moment. You think in terms of language. The language you think in determines how you experience reality. It's this thing called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Most human languages are linear, right? So we talk about the past, the present, and the future, and so that's how we think. But in Arrival, the aliens' written language is non-linear and it's circular with no beginning or end. In other words, there is no past, present, or future. It's all collapsed into this one experience that occurs right here, right now. And so as Amy Adams learns this language, her brain rewires to think in the same way. So she stops experiencing time as past, present, and future. And instead, she starts experiencing all moments at once. So she begins to have memories of events that haven't happened yet. She's remembering her future. So when you have those inspirations and hunches, you're actually remembering your future. It's not a pipe dream. I mean, unless you're getting high, which I don't recommend. Do as I say, not as I did. But you're actually remembering your future. And this is very much in alignment with so many other things that I teach in terms of the quantum field and the unified field, or the fourth dimension, as Neville Goddard talks about it. He says that all information exists right here, right now, in the fourth dimensional space, the quantum field. And when you're thinking thoughts, they're not actually coming from your head. Your brain is like a receiver, and based on your emotions and your experience and the way you interpret them, you're tuning into an aspect of the field, and you're receiving that information. So your future already exists in the field. And when you're having these hunches and these intuitions, you're not daydreaming. You're actually tuning into information that's in the field that exists right here, right now. Goddard describes it as the whole of all of time, the past, the present, the future exists as one unified whole right now in the field. Very much like in the movie Arrival. You know, I had a friend, my buddy James. I was hanging out with him in Medellin, and This was a guy who, had some successes, had some failures, and now his business is doing $1.5 million a month. And we were having a conversation in the backyard of an Airbnb that I had rented, where he said, I had this moment after I met another gentleman, and it was just this intuition I had. And I went back to my wife and I said, babe, everything's about to change. And she said, what do you mean? And he said, I don't know. I just feel that. And that was actually the moment, that gentleman that he met who became a marketing partner, he can look back on it and pinpoint that moment as the moment that he began the trajectory towards $1.5 million a month. So everything changed. And later he told me, Dave, I think I remembered my future in that moment. I want you to realize and not dismiss those hunches, because these moments of intuition, you're remembering your future. And we look at people as like chosen ones, right? The people who are out there who have done something meaningful or significant, and we pedestalize them as if they're somehow different than us. But it's important for you to understand that the chosen ones are simply the ones who choose themselves. That's up to you. You get to choose. And there are glimpses of your future that you receive to guide you and encouraging you into choosing that future version of yourself. I had a conversation with my wife recently, about 3 months ago, where I told her, babe, it's the craziest thing. I feel like I'm going to become one of the wealthiest people in the world. And she's like, oh, that's nice, babe. And I was like, no, but what's odd about it is I had always put like the Zuckerbergs or the Elon Musks or the Jeff Bezos like on another pedestal. But the vision that's coming to me around what we can create for humanity, like it requires $1 trillion to flow through it. And so I understand this feeling. It's this moment of, I don't really care what anyone else is doing. I know that there is a will for me that I'm being called to, and I'm remembering it right here, right now. And then you come back into the present moment. And it's filled with all kinds of evidence against that massive vision that you have. The ask for us, or the opportunity, is to navigate through the present moment, operating as much as our future selves as we can, in the way our future self would be confident, in the way our future self would not be judging ourselves, in the way our future self would not be criticizing others. Because if we had accomplished this great vision, we would be at peace with ourselves, wouldn't we? So the key is to be at peace with ourselves now, even though there are pieces of our life that we don't prefer in the present moment. And as we live in peace, those pieces change. And we close the gap between the ego of today and the intuition of tomorrow, between our current self and our future self, between the challenges that we have and the limited possibilities that we're experiencing today and the greatness that we're destined for. And so these are all deep metaphysical principles, right? Because choosing yourself means trusting what you're tuning into, even though the evidence may not be presenting itself in your reality right now. Choosing yourself means honoring the whispers. It means trusting your intuition and saying yes to the vision, even when your current reality says you're crazy. I want you to go back and think about those whispers that you've been dismissing, that vision of being rich, that hunch about significance, that sense that you're meant for something bigger, because you're not crazy, you're not delusional. You're remembering your future. And the question is, will you choose yourself? Because the chosen ones aren't special. They're just people who said yes to what they were tuning into. So what is it that you should be saying yes to more emphatically? If you're following along on YouTube, drop it in the comment box. Right? If you're listening on the audio platforms, just acknowledge it and own it for yourself. What is that quiet whisper that you have been dismissing? What is the greatness that you're destined for that you have been failing to acknowledge? Because you can choose yourself. You can choose the whisper, even when your current reality and those things around you are telling you that you're full of shit, right? Why not you? And if you want to go deeper on any of this, distinguishing intuition from ego or letting your old self die, working with your calling, I've got tons of other episodes that break this down. Do me a favor, if you love this episode, subscribe if you have not yet, whether you're on the audio platforms or on YouTube. And if you love this episode, share this episode with somebody else. That's the way we pay it forward. Because as I've said before, this developing ourselves, becoming whole, personal growth, it's not a do-it-yourself project. We do it as a community. And if you haven't yet, I've got my live event coming up. Check it out at powerfullivingexperience.com. The link is in the show notes, as well as access to some other courses and free trainings that we have. I love you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today, and I will see you in the next episode.